Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Excuse me. Welcome to the Finance and Economic Development Committee and Nominating Committee joint meeting, February 21st, 2020. Declarations of interest. Office of the City Clerk appointment, appointments Vice Chair and Member at Large Finance and Economic Development Committee. The Finance and Economic Development Committee and Nominating Committee consider and recommend to Council appointments to the following positions: Vice Chair FEDCO and Member at Large FEDCO. So we have a motion by Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, that whereas the at-large position of the Finance and Economic Development Committee is vacant as a result of Councillor Tierney's appointment to the Chair of the Transportation Committee, a position that is a seat of FEDCO by virtue of office, whereas Councillor Tierney has advised the Mayor and the City Clerk he'll be stepping down as Vice Chair of FEDCO effective upon the appointment and replacement, whereas the City Clerk has undertaken the circulation to seek expressions of interest from members of Council interested in being considered appointed to Council to replace Councillor Tierney as Member of Large and or Vice Chair of Finance and Economic Development Committee, whereas the Clerk's office has received 2 expressions of interest for Finance and Economic Development Committee, that being Councillor Glenn Gower and Councillor Catherine McKenney, and whereas the Clerk's office has received 2 expressions of interest from members of Council for Vice Chair of FEDCO and Economic Development Committee, that being Councillors Laura Dudas and Councillor Carolyn Meehan. Therefore, be it resolved that the Joint Finance and Economic Development Committee and Nominating Committee consider the recommendation to Council of one of the following members to the appointment of Members of Large of Finance and Economic Development Committee. 1, Councillor Glenn Gower. 2, Councillor Catherine McKenney. 3, Councillor Carolyn Meehan, interested in Vice Chair position. Therefore, be it resolved that the Joint Finance and Economic Development Committee and Nominating Committee consider the recommendations to Council of one of the following members as an appointment of Vice Chair on Finance and Economic Development Committee. 1, Councillor Laura Dudas, and 2, Councillor Carolyn Meehan, if appointed as Member at Large. Thank you.
Right. So, Mr. Clerk, if you could bring us through the process that we're to follow.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to have the Deputy Clerk take the committee through the process.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As with the last meeting of this nature, members will have before them a series of motions, this being the first. We will consider first the position of Member at Large. For this position, the Mayor will call a separate vote, yeas and nays, on each name individually. Each member of the Joint Committee at the table may vote yes on only one of the names. Whichever member gets a majority of votes will be recommended to Council for appointment. If no member gets a majority of votes, the member with the fewest votes will be removed from the list and a runoff vote taken between the top 2 nominees. In the event of a tie, the matter would be referred to Council without recommendation from the committee.
Okay, so we have the first motion that Councillor Tierney has read out, and they're numbered based on their ward numbers. So it's be it resolved that the Joint Finance and Economic Development Committee and Nominating Committee recommend to Council one of the following members for appointment as Member of Large at FEDCO. So yeas and nays on Councillor Gower.
Conseiller Blair. Conseiller Cloutier.
Oui.
Councillor Darouz.
Oui.
Councillor Dudas. Councillor El-Shantiri. Councillor Harder. Yes. Councillor Hubley.
Yes.
Councillor Kavanagh.
No.
Conseiller Luloff.
Oui.
Councillor Moffat.
Yes.
Councillor Suds.
Yes.
Vice Chair Tierney.
Yes.
Mayor Watson.
Yes.
9 yeas,
Okay.
1 nay.
Therefore, be it further resolved that the Joint FEDCO and Nominating Committee consider and recommend to Council one of the following members for appointment as Vice Chair on the FEDCO. First name is Laura Dudas.
Excuse me. Isn't that the only name now?
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Mayor, with respect to the Member at Large vote that we just undertook, it would be appropriate for the member who did not vote for Councillor Gower to be provided an opportunity to indicate who she would be voting
Oh,
for.
okay, sorry. Who will you be voting for, Councillor Kavanaugh?
Mr. Mayor, I was supporting Councillor Catherine McKinney.
Okay, thank you. So on the roll call for first name Laura Dudas.
Conseiller Blais,
Yep.
If appointed as members of large, so Councillor Carolyn McKeon was not appointed, so doesn't that just leave one person putting their name forward, and therefore we need to vote as
Mr. Mayor, that is correct. There is one name remaining, so committee would be voting on that one name as Councillor Meehan was not selected as the member at
Okay,
large.
so we'll still do the yeas and nays. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Conseiller Blais, Conseiller Cloutier,
Oui.
Councillor Darouze,
Oui.
Councillor Dudas, Councillor El-Shantiri, Councillor Harder, Councillor Hubli,
Yes.
Councillor Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Conseiller Luloff,
Oui.
Councillor Moffat,
Yes.
Councillor Suds,
Yes.
Vice Chair Tierney,
Yes.
Mayor Watson,
Yes.
10 yeas.
Okay. Next is appointment Vice Chair Planning Committee that I think Councillor Tierney has the motion.
Great, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Whereas Councillor Tim Tierney has advised the Mayor and the City Clerk following his appointment as Chair of Transportation Committee, he'll be stepping down as Vice Chair of Planning Committee, effective upon appointment or replacement. Whereas the City Clerk has undertaken the circulation to the expressed interest of members of Council interested in being considered for the appointment by Council to replace Councillor Tierney as Vice Chair of Planning Committee. Whereas the Clerk has received 3 expressions of interest from members of Council for Planning Committee Vice Chair, that being Councillors Glenn Gower, Jeff Leeper, and Carolyn Meehan. Therefore, be resolved that the Joint and Economic Finance Committee and Nominating Committee consider to recommend to Council one of the following members as an appointment of Vice Chair of Planning Committee. 1, Councillor Glenn Gower. 2, Councillor Jeff Leeper. 3, Councillor Carolyn Meehan.
Okay, so yeas and nays on Councillor Gower, please.
Conseiller Blais, Conseiller Cloutier,
Oui.
Councillor Darouze,
Yes.
Councillor Dudas, Councillor El-Shantiri, Councillor Harder, Councillor Hubli,
Yes.
Councillor Kavanaugh,
No.
Conseiller Luloff,
Oui.
Councillor Moffat,
Yes.
Councillor Suds,
Yes.
Vice Chair Tierney,
Yes.
Mayor Watson.
Yes?
9 yeas, 1 nay.
Okay. Next is recommendation for appointment of the Chair of the Ottawa Public Library. As you know, this is a, oh, I'm sorry, Councillor, who would you have voted for?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I was going to vote for Caroline Meehan to join the committee.
Okay, thank you. This recommendation is to the library board, because the library board chooses the chair, not the council, but we can bring forward a recommendation, and Councillor Luloff has a point of privilege.
I, Councillor Matthew Luloff, rise on a point of personal privilege with the respect to the motion to nominate a member of council to sit as chair on the Ottawa Public Library Board. I've put my name forward for consideration by FEDCO and the nominating committee for this position. Although I do not have a pecuniary interest in this matter under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, I am aware that the Integrity Commissioner has advised me and my colleagues in the past to declare perceived conflicts of interest in the spirit of the Code of Conduct for members of Council. In the spirit of fairness, I've decided to step away from the table and will not be participating in consideration for this term and of this item, and members of FEDCO have received my reasoning for wanting this position. Thank you.
Great, thank you. On a procedure? Yes?
Obviously, I agree with what you're doing, but it has the next step, and you brought up the fact that that library board has that right. Does the decision that he is taking now in any way cause him to say that at the library board when they make their decision?
No, Mr. Mayor, I do not believe it does.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Tierney has a, we have One name, I believe. So yeas and nays on the one name, on Matt Luloff. Carried? Carried, okay. Thank you. Carried. All right. Next, Councillor Tierney has a motion with respect to Chair of the Built Heritage. No, we hadn't. Okay, Councillor Tierney, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Whereas Glenn Gower has advised the Mayor and City Council his intent to step down as Chair of Built Heritage Subcommittee effective upon the appointment and replacement, whereas the City Clerk has undertaken the circulation of expression of interest from members of Council interested in being considered for the appointment by Council to replace Councillor Gower as Built Heritage Subcommittee Chair, whereas the Clerk's Office has received one expression of interest from member of Council for Built Heritage Subcommittee, the Chair being Councillor Rawlinson King. Therefore, it be resolved that the Joint and Economic Development Committee and Nominating Committee recommend to Council appoint Councillor Rawlinson King to replace Councillor Gower as member and Chair of Built Heritage Subcommittee.
Okay. On the motion? Carried. Next is the Shaw Centre Board of Directors. Councillor Tierney, please.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Whereas Councillor Jenna Sudds has advised Mayor and the City Clerk that she'll be stepping down as a member of the Shaw Centre Board of Directors effective upon the appointment and replacement, whereas the City Clerk has undertaken the circulation to seek the expressions of interest from members of Council interested in being considered for the appointment by Council to replace Councillor Sudds as a member of the Shaw Centre Board of Directors, whereas the Clerk's Office has received two expressions of interest from members of Council, that being Councillors Matthew Fleury and Councillors George Derouz. Therefore, be resolved that the Joint and Economic Finance Development Committee and Nominating Committee, considering the recommendations to Council of one of the following members for the appointment of the member of the Shaw Centre Board of Directors, 1, Councillor Matthew Fleury, and 2, Councillor George Derouz.
Okay, Councillor Derouz on a point of personal privilege.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I do. Councillor George Derouz raised on the point of personal privilege with respect to the motion to nominate a member of Council to sit on the Board of Directors for the Shaw Centre. I have put my name forward for consideration by FEDCO and by Nominating Committee for this position. Although I do not have a pecuniary interest in this matter under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, I am aware that the Integrity Commissioner has advised me and my colleagues in the past to declare perceived conflicts of interest in the spirit of the Code of Conduct of Members of Council. As Councillor Fleury does not have a vote at this table, in the spirit of the fairness, I have decided to step away from the table and will not be participating in the consideration of this item.
Okay, so first name is Councillor Fleury, yeas and nays.
Conseiller Blais, Conseiller Cloutier,
No.
Councillor Derouz, Councillor Dudas, Councillor Eshlantieri, Councillor Harder, Councillor Hubley,
No.
Councillor Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Conseiller Luloff,
No.
Councillor Moffat,
No.
Councillor Sudds, Councillor Vice Chair Tierney,
No.
Mayor Watson,
No.
1 yea, 8 nays.
Just
May I ask a question?
question, point of order. Yeah, I just wondering, I thought this used to be that the local councillor served as the Shaw Centre Board of Directors. I thought that's how it's
No, it's
worked
a
in the
council
past.
appointment.
It's, is that not the case? He's the local councillor?
Well, first of all, it's not a local facility, it's a citywide facility, and secondly, it's appointments from the city. It's not, I think I have
in his
an
ward.
ex officio seat. Okay, so on Councillor Derouz, yeas and nays?
Conseiller Blais, Conseiller Cloutier,
Oui.
Councillor Derouz, Councillor Dudas, Councillor Eshlantieri, Councillor Harder. Yes. Councillor Hubley,
Yes.
Councillor Kavanaugh,
No, I don't know why I'm voting when I've already said yes to someone else.
Conseiller Luloff,
Yes.
Councillor Moffat,
Yes.
Councillor Sudds. Vice Chair Tierney,
Yes.
Mayor Watson.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 nay.
Okay. No in-camera items on adjournment?
Just a question before we actually adjourn, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to get from the chair of the committee his reasoning, the chair of the committee, the reasoning why we feel it's okay to have a utter lack of representation from broad swaths of regions in the city of Ottawa on FEDCO when we are an independent, non-party-based municipality. How do you justify not appointing members from huge swaths of regions onto the financial decision-making board here in the city? I'd like to hear your answer on that.
Sure. Well, the simple answer is that all decisions we make at this committee level go to all of council, and every region of council is represented around the council table.
But why aren't they
So that's
represented here?
That's the rationale.
Where there's
for it.
debate, where there's discussion, where there's
You
votes.
can have debate and discussion at council.
Can we vote
always
here?
do.
We can't vote here.
Thank you. So on adjournment, carried.
Carried.
Thank you.